part. Mhm.
Super. Yeah, thank you for joining us here in the evening. We will be hosting this second part of a webinar of a series of two. This is webinar number 2 on the phase-out management and how to maximize the value after your charter period. I am Victor Savoyen. I'm based in Sweden, a founder of Yacht-Match. We started 9 years ago as a client-centric purchase advisor, helping clients with their boat ownership and charter, helping clients travel around the world. And I worked with Angela in my previous position as in sales for a large charter company, Navigar Yachting. And Angela joined us here for not too long ago. Since we've been working as colleagues, as you can say, we've been helping clients from Navigar for the last 5 years exiting, and Angela's been sitting on the Navigar side, helping Navigar and the client as well mediate. So Angela is joining me from Croatia. So also welcome, Angela. Let's unmute you first. So we can hear you.
Yeah. Thank you, Victor. Something was not following my orders. As Victor said, we know each other since years ago when we used to work actually for the same company, where I spent 17 years working, not at the beginning straight with the owners, but then I started in some time to deal only with the owners, programs, and little by little took some more on it. Last probably few years, it was more support on this side when the contract is ending. When you are as long enough there, you can easily then switch and somehow be support to owners, still keep the company support. But as it is, then it came to the change on my side, where I first left from the company, and then after a while joined Yacht-Match, contacted Victor, and I'm really happy that we can both be together, not only us with the rest of the team, and put this experience of all of us and try to find some best solutions, especially on this part when we say about end of program, which we all know that it is a date. It is something that is with date, and we will talk about all of this a little bit more.
Super. Yeah. So welcome back to those who are joining us again from the last webinar we had. In the first one, just a little quick recap. We talked a lot about, of course, our position in the market and how we got to be working specifically with this phase-out management, and also giving you some insight about what the phase-out really is and where owners typically lose control and time and money. And we also looked at the different phases, whether you have your boat in the Caribbean, Europe, where in Europe, and also on the other side, the Seychelles or maybe Thailand, where typically you should start and what that means in the process. Those, if you haven't joined, then we will share that as well after this webinar, along with the recording. We will share the webinar slides for the first webinar and the second. As per usual, these webinars we will be asking you to participate as much as you can. And we ask you to do that in the chat function in this webinar. You have that on your phone or if you're on your computer. So feel free to write there, and then we will mediate. And at the end of the webinar, we'll take up the questions there. Yeah, so today we're going to go a little bit more further into what I just mentioned before, which is to understand the risks. And the questions that becomes relevant for you now is what to do next, what happens, what are my options, and what to think about in terms of this added value of either creating a value for yourself where you can sell the boat at the right time for the right price, let's say, or you continue your ownership in charter management and how that can be combined with also selling your boat. So we would like to get a little bit more into that and add some of our thoughts from our side working with this, representing the clients, but also Angela now coming in, having worked with one of the larger global charter companies, and having her view on this. And shortly mentioned also, we are a team. It's not just, of course, Angela and myself. We are also joined by Luca and Daria and Sebastian. Daria being the head of our short-term management department, and Luca being our technical expertise and surveyor, and also Sebastian doing the owner care and the transitioning as well. So we are a team working with our clients who we offer the phase-out management with. So let's move on. Angela, if you don't have anything to say, then you can move on to slide 2 if you like.
Yes, we've seen many times that owners can feel not certain what to do, when to do. After years in charter, you expect that everything is somehow planned, but it's not longer just operational anymore. It just becomes strategic. You have to actually know at a time if you keep the yacht, if you still want to sell it, or maybe just reposition it. There is really no one type of answer for you, but the timing, one of the risks we also mentioned last time in our webinar, that's really important in a way to decide early on time. If you wait for the end of the season and think, yeah, we have this phase out period, there will be some points where you realize it's a little bit short time. In Mediterranean, typically it's 30 days, and then the basis will be on stop time. And already by springtime, there will be again time where maybe you cannot even keep the yacht anymore on that particular berth. So one or another way, it's always good to anticipate that time is not something you have endlessly, and make these decisions on time.
Yeah, correct, Angela. I mean, and this slide captures more or less the recap of what we discussed in the last webinar. The key insights from that is that this is the end of a 5 to 7 year charter program, but it's not the end point for many of those we've helped, and certainly not shouldn't be thought about like that for you as well. But it is a high stakes financial crossroads, and one of the paths owners go through as a default handover is, on the other hand, they can manage their exit independently, or they can reclaim their position and have leverage. And with leverage is something that we're kind of discuss now, is how you manage the communication, who helps you, and what options you will get at that end. So if you would like to add a little bit more on this slide, or then you, Angela, you can perhaps move on to the next one, if you like.
Yeah, this is always the crossroad, very important. Maybe anticipating that yacht is ready with the end of the contract. It's typically not, and of course it needs some more time to add. And then again, if accepting the yacht as is something that's stipulated and maybe not just taken over from your side, that could be also the problem, because if you have time to come and do all of the work on your own, some of you are lucky enough, but in reality, it does include also more visits and coordination between the bays, between the survey. That, of course, it's very important also to add in this phase-out process.
I thought it was prudent to move over to the next slide because you mentioned as-is, and this slide itself, it catches where most owners get it wrong, the as-is trap, and it's just basically explaining that the most common mistakes that owners make under pressure. We understand that it's not the easiest to be present, which you really have to be during the phase out to have had the type of backlog that you need, the communication. Maybe it's not the same base manager anymore, technician, or the contracts have been rewritten or something like that, to follow that all up and be, demand to know all your options and how you should communicate and what you should be doing is of course very hard, and becomes a lot of things under pressure. And under pressure is not just from your side; it's also, we're dealing with people here. We're dealing with a base manager about what pressure they have on them. They need to take care of at least 10, maybe 15, sometimes 30 boats that needs to be handed over and phased out. And then they have very little insight about what's been decided. Sometimes they don't really have the logbook they need, and so forth. So, yeah, I think what we want to talk about is how to, through proper mitigation of this planning, is to maximize the value, and talk about the biggest value destroyers, is to accept the boat too quickly and too passively, actually. And yeah, there's a lot of inherent hidden costs in this passiveness and this accepting of as is, because this way of structuring the phase out, and it's very stressed and it's very time consuming for everyone. It also becomes a fact where do we place the costs, and normally those costs are on you, because your contract is often stipulated that you're taking care of caretaking, insurance, and marina fees when the boat becomes yours, or during the phase out, or if it's delayed somehow. Yeah, maybe you can add something from your experience, Angela, as working from the other side and communicating with you on this.
Yes, yes, of course. From my experience, even if there are like two identical yachts layout, but the outcome does not have to be the same. It always depends how the yachts were maintained, how the phase out also was handled, what was all going on in past 6 years, and of course how the yachts are presented to market. And if it's not, even if the intention is to sell the yacht, but what we could see, if a potential buyer is not happy, then you can even lose this chance if it was not done on time. On the other hand side, in Mediterranean, the season is lasting till beginning of November, and that's for exit program, which is typically 3rd of November, leaves you this, what I mentioned, 30 days. December is a very short time, because already around Christmas, it's already stop of the work for the base, and the whole January. That leaves February and March. But phase out is not only one thing that the operator needs to take care. They need to take care also of the rest of the fleet, get them ready for the season. So it's a very, very rushed period for the base staff. And we are not saying that they always like to help and try, but the week is only 5 days long, and sometimes 1 month just flies away. So having phase out starting way in advance, announcing your wishes, it's the first step, of course, and then knowing what you are doing. But then let's move to the next slide, and we can talk more about.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to make a quick note on that. So I think if you're listening to this, you will like to know what is the practical ways of handling this maybe this pitfall of getting into this as is, accepting as is, and being rushed to accept as is. Well, what we've done since the last 5 years is to understand how what Angela says here is not just about the base manager having the responsibility of handling the exit and the phase out, but he's also handling the rest of the boats that are there. There's charter weeks being booked all the way up. So what we do is, on practical terms, it's really important to gather your notes, your thoughts about what has been communicated before. We review the maintenance log. We know through serial numbers what we can look at for warranty. We're very well connected in the industry. We have a technical person, a surveyor as well, that inspects the boats. And also when we have a third-party surveyor, we instruct them specifically, because surveyors are not used to working in this way, where we have a practical operational survey report where we can indicate what is acceptable as is, wear and tear, and what we need to be looking at for creating a transparent and trustworthy backlog for when our client later wants to sell the boat, because the buyer at the other end will also like to have that providence. So we're really creating that environment where we find practical ways of achieving this. And we also have different ways of doing a survey for engine and for the hull, for the rig, for sea trials and everything else, which leads to creating this added value in the where you have a higher resale value, you have better providence, understanding of it. Another thing that we notice as well is to communicate as soon as possible, and check the boat before it actually is doing the phase out. So it's to do what we call a winter service survey, to check the boat now, before it goes in, and to get a better understanding and to communicate with the base, because it could be that the base has a lot of boats, and then we know that this boat, your particular boat, is in worse condition than others, or vice versa. Hopefully that's the case. And then we know how to prioritize that. We can communicate with the base manager. Together with the base manager, we can communicate with the booking office and make sure we're blocking off the boat so it gets enough time to be worked on. Because we simply don't want to end up in that situation at the end where everyone goes on holiday, and then we're back in February, because all the costs will be mounting on you as the boat owner. That's practically how the contracts work. So we really have a step-by-step way of creating this operational survey, let's say checklist, how we get the boat out of this as is acceptance phase. So let's go and discuss this slide particular. And this actually explains how the market values ex-charter yachts. I know that many boat owners are either very, very, very happy and proud of their boat, and have gone into a program with the mindset that this is their boat and they will be using it privately. But we also know that there's plenty who hasn't, who just seen it as a holiday investment and so forth. And unfortunately, the market out there buying these boats they draw everyone over one line, we like to call it. So there is it's very important to get rid of what we call these charter boat stamps, right? And to be doing that is to really have this proper survey and phase out to be in there in place, to come up with advice together with you when you accept the boat, what could be refitted on the boat, what could be looked at, in what you want to sell the boat, how you sell the boat, etc., etc. But the market itself looks at these boats and looks at how they've been treated and maintained, and they would go in with that attitude as well. And that's why it's very important to start early, to have a good plan. If your boat particularly needs to have a 1 year or 2 years more in charter to do some refitting, that's perhaps needed as well. Or if you want to sell it, then we need to have that plan as well, how to do that. The expectations, I would say, for the depreciation and the sort of positioning you have with the price and the condition of the boat and the history and stuff like that, it is that it varies a lot. We see that owner version boats are still very attractive on the market, of course, because we have more inquiries for those. But as soon as the boat has been in a charter fleet and it has been with one of those program providers or global program providers, that your boat most likely will have a history online. This also goes back to sort of trying to raise that history online by making sure that we start with the good providence, phase out the survey history, create a good pre-sale survey, brokers comment that we can share with clients who are interested in buying a boat, or if it goes into charter, that we really have a good instruction for the new charter base and the charter management team of what they can expect. Because ex-charter boats in general, they lose about 50% of their value if you put it on the market. And that's just the price. And then you have a huge competition on the market you have to expect as well. And so it's not just the price itself, the appreciation, but it's also the amount of time it takes to sell your boat that you have to counter into this. And that's really where we can help you to position how you should think about this in a strategic way. And all depends, of course, over your wishes. If you want to trade in or sell your boat or keep it as a private owner, then of course there's a different strategy for that. But most often we're talking to clients who want to have help with keeping the boat, keeping it on charter, maybe selling it to trade it in for a new one, or just selling it outright. So we will position the strategy differently there with you and communicate depending on where your boat is, what type of legal structure around the ownership of the boat is, and your expectations. Maybe Angela, you have something to add on this as well, of course.
Yes, yes, sure. On this part, ideally, everyone's dream who wish to sell is sell it straight after the handover. But in reality, it's very hard to match. Only if you really know in advance that there is a buyer and everything is already sorted before the end of the contract. But what I've seen in most of the cases that owners then rushing into selling, maybe there is no proper preparation, maybe not addressing key issues at the first, and that can lead. That can of course lead also to lower offers or staying longer time on market. But if you know what to expect, and this is very important part also from Yacht-Match side. You don't have to be afraid like what I will do after that date, because there is a team that will provide you costs if you want to just keep it on your own, or maybe you will use another year and place it under charter management, but still be owner, or just add the value and then sell it at much better position. So those are the key issues and strategic points actually that we are emphasizing today.
Thank you for that, Angela. So this next slide touches on what I briefly mentioned, which is trying to raise the charter stamp. And what we mean by that phrasing is to try to remember that your boat is normally bought for the end purposes of a company having you as an investor, investing into their fleet. Then they have an opportunity to use your boat to earn money on that. So what we want to do is to make sure that we, through a very gradual way of working with practical steps, starting early with this communication and the whole team we have, is to, with your wishes, with all we can tell you about what options are in the market, is to start with everything we do to create a backlog, to create the documentation needed to raise the charter stamp. And what we mean by raising the charter stamp is to say that the clients in the market would see your boat as if it's really just standard equipped, if it has a lot of wear and tear where you have the heavy use areas, and how is actually the warranty work been handled on all the parts of the boat that are, with third party supplier, and how are we working to really not pressure, I think that's the wrong word, but somehow it's a pressure on the base itself to comply with the more in-depth survey we do, that just doesn't touch on wear and tear, but really goes into what is wear and tear, what's acceptable, and how to remedy it. So it's really about doing that in different steps, and you will have that it's a noticeably charter boat, ex-charter boat. So we need to think about that when we are moving into the next phase for you. If you're using it privately and you want to have a low cost ownership during that time and then put it on the market, we need to find a strategy for that and how to present it on the market with the restyling and maybe do some refitting on the boat that is worth keeping in mind. Or we bring it into charter, then it would be a different setup completely, because it would be really transparent and it would be really you understanding how we're creating value as a partner with your boat as a business. Or if you want to go and live on board a boat and you want to have help because you want to travel around the world, then it's of course really making sure that that boat is structurally sound and that we have looked into every part of the boat and maybe help you with refitting as well while you're taking your time to transition into live on board as well. So the charter stamp thing is very important to understand. We have seen, as an example, helped early on with this phase out. We helped a few clients in the US, for example, who had boats on the BVI, and they gladly handed it over to a well-known broker on the BVIs. And because they're not really involved and have no really understanding about the contracts itself and the charter management and the charter programs itself, they just take on the boat and they put it on the market, and then it will convince you to drop the price as much as possible because they want to have interest and sell the boat. But they're very hard when it comes to then mediating and communicating with the buyer, because the buyer loses trust if you can't really show them or answer them on these hard questions that will arise. So it's not just, of course, the status of the boat and the history of the maintenance and so forth. It's also answering with conviction as well, that how much do you trust in this boat, and what type of certainties do you give away as a broker. Us as brokers being certified brokers in Swedboat in Sweden, in Scandinavia, and Hisva in Holland, we have certain credentials and certain practices we have to live up to. So if we are mediating a boat, we are responsible as well for declaring the status of the boat, the default defects, and everything else. So that's the responsibility we take on, but that also gives a really added value in the market, because the buyer who comes to us knows that we have done a thorough job of understanding the yeah the status of the boat. So raising the charter stamps are very important. We have very different ways of doing that depending on what your plan is to help you to secure your interest. But maybe Angela, you have something to add there that you've seen in your 17 years as a owner
Yeah,
care manager.
yeah, it's only you can expect that after 6, even 7 years of charter, that you need to do some refit. Maybe that's more familiar word that in the past some of you could hear about doing some refit after when the time comes. Maybe you don't realize, yes, of course, I can do upgrades, and I still have to do winter service, no matter if the yacht will stay out of charter or in charter. This is something that will be your cost in any case, because if you don't realize the yacht, still you need to do this care. And by this, when taking the ownership, raising this charter stamp, it can only help with getting market value up. And this is why it's very well to have assistance where you can be provided with what kind of upgrades you could do, what are the costs. Like Victor said, keeping it at a lower price on berth somewhere if it's not anymore in charter management. So you are still having this time, but you are not losing it. You are adding this value, and in the meantime, maybe the yacht will be also sold until the next season. Yeah.
It's a combination of also making sure that the documentation is in place, that some things will be not there, and then it's basically how we can create a trust and get hold of that documentation that's needed. And also it's also understanding the damages that are on the boat and how serious they are. It's sometimes you'll get buyers who say, oh, spider cracks everywhere in the gel coat, and it's the biggest thing, and they are all great at finding everything that you shouldn't read online, and they use AI, and it's a constant loophole of this. But because we can show by default how we have verified the status of the boat and who we're using and our experience, and we can come with recommendation, and we can advise them on what is needed to look at and stuff like that. We create that trust. So we're really advocates for you, and we're advocates of having a practical way of solving things, and that creates the added value for you, because actually that naturally leads us over to the next slide. It's when we started doing this, we were contacted by boat owners that we have helped at this charter company Navigar, and we had a good relationship. Although we were not longer managing their boats, they came to us and said, "Look, we had a really good relationship with you from before. You helped us with this boat and organized everything else. Now we want to have help with a phase out." And I think that is a little bit what we've noticed, is that when you work in this industry as a technical guy at the base, or as a base manager, or you're in charge of the operations of these charter companies, you know only that industry. You don't know anything else. You don't come from the other side of the industry, which you could be higher end yachting or management, yacht maintenance services, or something else. You only know that. So you don't really expect them to also understand when they say this is great maintenance of your boat, or this is how you handle the logging or anything like that. They just do it because they're not used to anything else. So you really need to understand the relationship with who you're dealing with. But an operator handling your handover is very self-concerned, of course. it's in-house based personnel that are working with this. It's arbitrary, everything they're finding, and it's unverified entries. Sometimes it's, can just be something that's written 3 years in a logbook that makes no sense. And everything is in paper in terms of how they should do the phase out. It could be in paper. You can have a contract that's very detailed, but you need to really be there to work that checklist over with them, and you need to know what to comment on, and you need to know how to get verified documentation because you need to build that history. So yeah, it's the as is becomes a stressful factor because that's a way for them to prove that in the end they can maybe negotiate something that they can give away because you're so accepting of things that they've overlooked. So yeah, I think if we turn it around, if we look at these 4 steps that we have written in this slide, is if you have an independent partner helping you with the handover, you have everything certified. There's a certain way of doing that because it needs to be communicated and logged. So if there's any disputes, we can revert back to that. Um, we audit all the maintenance logs. We audit all the warranty work. We know the industry very well. We know what to look for. We of course also audit all the paper documentation about if the boat has changed ownership or if there's been any contract changes or anything like that as well. It's very important to know, and it's also big building up that backlog for when you take ownership or want to sell it or it changes ownership in the future. And then, of course, the equipment verification is just really to make sure what to look for. We see that some surveyors are doing sea trials on boats, but they rarely do enough, which is really looking through more than you can visually look at. And the quick checks on an engine, yeah, it starts great, but maybe we should look at something extra here as well. So we really know how to do operationally good sea trials that last. And yeah, the outcome becomes a boat that you will have. It will still be issues on the boat, of course. It's just how we make sure that those are dealt with, or how we can create a backlog and documentation on, and talk to the next boat owner about what is worth changing, negotiating, and what to focus on, and not to make too many small issues into too much of a big issue. Maybe you should add something as well here, Angela, on this slide.
Yes, maybe most of owners actually don't realize that survey is not something it will come automatically. It only goes upon your own request. So that's also a point to emphasize, because sometimes I was also asked on those things. And if then you read all over again, then you see that is upon your request. Doing it too early before the season starts, it has no really, it's not doing the work for you, because there is still the whole charter season to go. So this is also important to plan in advance and have it in that time as soon as charter is finished. Based on that checklist, colleague, which is not with us today, Luka, but for example, in Croatia, he's very well on top of that checklist, then to follow up and keep following on how this handover will come to the point where you can finally have this takeover protocol signed. It's easiest to sign this takeover protocol. You don't have to have survey or nothing. But then again, did you have your service reports well done in past 6-7 years? Or they are just filled with regular changes. With the survey report, it will then be a statement about condition of the yacht at takeover, and then again opening something that will come next, and like we said, erase this charter stamp and put up the value.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think we can go into practical explanations as well, how we do it, and we like to do that if we have individual meetings. But yes, we have assigned people on our team that follows this survey and the steps. And starting early is very important. So really, if you're looking at a phase out now at the end of the year, you need to start immediately to start investigating and going through the boat and talking to the base and and it's important not to be rushed because there's a lot of dates where we need to have your involvement and your decision as well. For example, to give you, if you want to get into a new charter management, then by September this year, actually before the actual handover of the boat, we would need to know as much information. You would need to have provided information from us. So all these charter feasibility studies and calculations and presentation of where we can place the boat needs to be decided by September to be able to go into to a safe planning structure and market your boat so the boat can go into a new fleet the next year. So it's really, really about this planning and starting ahead that's important. And the independent survey is very, very important. It really is a tool for us to make sure that we're talking through the means of something that Veritas surveyor that we can be used to, and we of course instruct the Veritas surveyor very very precisely because they can make a general survey, but we instruct them on how the survey should be done and what they should be doing, and then we are there in the pre-inspection, during the work, and then after inspection as well when we do the final handover. So we have a person following that the whole time. So I think it's very, very important to state that it's not just to employ any surveyor that we can find or someone who's been recommended by the operator. Certainly not. It's really to try find someone, a surveyor who can work with creating the reports that we need, and then us having the mandate from you, the power of attorney, to follow this process the whole time. And it doesn't start the last month when the boat is handed over. It starts now. Or if you're looking at the handover for next year, it's also very, very good to talk to us now to really think about what options do you have to start planning this. And then it's a much smoother journey if we have a decision together with you, maybe end of the year, so we can have a look at the boat at the beginning of next year if you're doing the phase out for next year as well. So maybe Angela, you can add some light on this slide as well.
Yeah, I think I already confirmed this just before, but what we maybe did not mention along the way with this takeover of the ownership, it needs to follow all of this, that what we are talking about is the technical condition, but it goes also to take over the ownership. So at a point, it will be you as the owner. And this is also where the team is providing support, just the same like for the survey. Those are the bullet points that will have to be addressed one or another way. Yeah.
Super.
We can
we're nearing our end. We got midway here, but the last few slides will be very practical steps. We would like to remind you that and welcome you to use the chat to ask your questions there. And then we will take those questions in the end. So if you have questions now, just start writing them, please, so we can address them in the end. But this slide here is what we call the Yacht-Match handover blueprint. It shows you a visual overview of the different steps. And I can go through them in short, but it is a structured process and it's not an ad hoc consulting. That's very important for you to what we want for you to understand. It's not something that we have done just last year. We did this now for the last 5 years and really have successfully helped clients in both of the Caribbean and the European destinations to have this successful phase out. So we really learned from this. We optimized this and we put it into a real project management and having the right people helping out. So we do it with the first step, which is the just basically how we turn the risky handover into a controlled process is to define the operator's contractual obligation. And that is sometimes done by looking at your contract. Not all the contracts are standardized. Have a look at what you have been promised. Inform the base. Talk to the management of the company, and especially the operations, to look at when we need to actually get the boat free from the bookings, because that can be very, very important as well to give us really time if it's really a stressed phased out on that base with a lot of boats being phased out, and you have to have some particular attention on your boat. So it's really about doing the audit of the documentation, the contracts, and also that what's been happened before, ownership of the boat, the financing, and understanding the depths of that, and then come with our advice there. And then it's about managing the survey and the service log review. Some have service log that has we've seen now when boats have been transitioned into new companies that the service log is completely gone lost. It's really quite scary. And we also see that there's been decisions made on services when a base manager is no longer there, and then the other base manager has to answer for that. So there's a lot to really understand and go through, and to have an honest talk and to record that together with the base manager to plan on ahead. We do the step three is really about trying to secure the registration, insurance, and documentation. What that means is that we need to make sure that it's unencumbered from any type of issues when we are facing that deregistration and the new registration for you, and giving you options as well, considering what you want to do with the boat. And then step four is to mediate with the base, and we do that really regularly. I mean, it's endless amount of hours, and there's a lot of downtime, I would say, with not having things answered. But we're there, we're on top of it. We look at somewhere between 100 and 115 hours just with the communication, because of the lack of real structure from these companies. Some have it, but most of them unfortunately lack it. And then it's about step number five, which is preparing your yacht, as you say, like that, for its next life. And that's where we want to start giving you some options, some ideas based on what we have done before, hear your thoughts, and then prepare for that. So that's really, we call it in Sweden, you're wearing a belt and these things around your shoulders to keep your pants up. You really have a safe environment to choose one or another. Maybe you can add something on this as well if you want to.
Pretty much we have covered all of the steps, and maybe just to emphasize that the experience comes here to the point, because for as many owners, exit is probably one time or first time. And even if you may be familiar with how everything goes on the paper, but having a support and someone who already has not only experience, but team on spot. So it's not me sitting in the office and doing something far away. Then there are partners, so everything is well covered. And that's probably the whole point, and saving time and energy, plus the support that you get.
Yes. This webinar is really about helping you to understand how we can create value for you and what's important for you, with some tips from us about creating value. And we touched on this before, which is charter companies are very happy for you to continue being a client with them if you are interested in buying a new boat, of course. Otherwise, they are in a power position where they have the boat in their fleet, and they will put it on brokerage if you just give them the chance to do that. Because during the charter period, up until the phase-out end of November in Europe, for example, the boat is really registered on them, or you is registered on your company that they manage. But at the same time, you have a contract where they are taking possession of that boat and use it for their business purposes. So it's easy for them to do that, and it's maybe quite hard for you to put the boat on the market because of the nature of you representing yourself, or nature of the broker representing a boat that they don't really have a full disclosure on. So they will offer the boat in the market. They will most probably have a very hard time to reach that market value you can expect from your boat if you take the steps that we're recommending. And that's the raising the charter stamp. And we have been very successful in doing this with our clients. And through this process, of course, we understand this is an investment from you as well to engage in us, but that's really where we are really interested in helping you to create that added value, and then either to bring the boat in with charter with us, one of our partners, or to bring the boat on the market for brokerage. And so we want to create a win-win situation where we see you as a partner. And this is what we do. We do create trust. I think the most important thing, we do create a trust. The clients who are interested in the boats, if we don't talk about the charter, but to buy the boat, they see our processes and we gain the trust from having those processes and leading up to getting the boat to them, and that's where we can make a difference. So we are better at pricing the boat in the market, better at creating the trust, getting clients with a different type of mindset, not just to lowball offers to Navigar and Dreamout and these bigger charter companies, which they know they need to get rid of the boat, so they're lowballing offers for them. So we're quite successful at that, and that's, I think, one of the main perks of having this, not just what Angela said before, which is time consuming and energy and all of that. But we also add, of course, quantifiable added value in them. Would you like to add something on this slide, or should we move on, Daria? Okay, yeah.
Angela, yeah, we can really, yeah, no problem. It's colleague Daria. Most of the cases also that you don't know your options simply because it's not written anywhere. You didn't think about it. You haven't been informed. So what is your path after the end of the date? So this is the crossroad. And what we wish to really avoid is being uncertain. And this is where we come to the point. Listen to what you have to say, and then slowly starting deciding and acting.
Yeah, and I think there's a way of combining the two paths we see here. One path is, of course, to get the boat on out and mediate it for you and help you with that. And then it's all depending on how rushed you are, let's say your position and when you want to sell the boat, because we will be having a strategy call about this. Or we can put it into charter again. Most of our clients are actually putting it into charter again because the fact is that the boat might be needing some extra TLC. It's not often a massive investment, but that investment can be offset through having it 1 year or 2 years into charter, where that income is then taken on refitting the boat and positioning the boat, really getting it into a different type of maintenance. And Angela will be happy to share case studies like that and referrals, because it's really, really important to understand that when you get the boat into more boutique charter fleet operator, we're really taking care of the boats. That's the difference here, because it's your investment, it's your boat. So we can really get it up to different standards. So we don't have to rush the selling of your boat if you're not in a position to sell to rush the selling, the brokerage. If we put it into a charter, we can immediately also transfer the VAT, so you don't have to pay VAT on the exit. We can really start up a new company. We can make a deed of transfer, a special agreement we do with Navigar and Mooring. So any of these companies, larger companies, where we transfer the rights of the contract into the other rights, which will be your company, and structure the handover like that. We avoid the VAT issue in the end, and we can transfer that into a safe environment of having the boat taken care of professionally. You can decide how much charter you want to have it on the boat and how much you want to use the boat, and that can all be used for refitting of your boat, making it having a higher value and present it in a different way. So we're not presenting it right off the bat from the base of this charter company. So that's what I want to say on these two paths.
Yeah, maybe just to add, we are now looking start of the season, and for Mediterranean it will be after the season, end of the contract. So it is the point that it should be now considered on take over the ownership already now and prepare everything till the end. So and for the next year, like you already said, that's also quite a good time to start on process.
If we move on to the next one, you might have some experience yourself from having a boat from before in charter, which is not the same now when you're really moving into an exit. Then most charter fleet operators, the large one, the global ones, will have someone sitting on the brokerage side helping you with that. And I don't know what your experience have been there, but it's important to ask yourself which type of brokerage agreements they provide to you. We at Yacht-Match and the part of Yacht-Match group that's called the Yacht-Match Yachts and Brokerage, we are accredited ISVA and Swedboat brokers. So we use their templates, we use the conformity we need to uplift to, and it's really about the phase out. Is really about making sure that we are feeling safe about representing your boat as well. So it's really having that complete, transparent maintenance dossier, having all the pre-sales survey documentation from the survey we've done and the completion, explaining to the clients what to focus on and how we can help them with the transitioning onto the boat and what they can use the boat for. Some of them might be interested in using the boat for charter again, which is we're also a great partner to talk about because of our positioning in the market, creating these tailored charter ownerships. And I think that's what we are really adding, that extra layer to this, is that we will be able to be more successful at selling the boat at a higher price. That's guaranteed. Would you like to add something on this? Well, you haven't been that much involved in this, but you probably have heard from your colleagues, Angela, who has been in charge of the brokerage.
Yes, but it's always like that. Like I mentioned that at the beginning of the meeting. You think it will go end date, sell the boat, and it will all go in fast time. Our latest by the spring or so, and then before you know, it's the spring, and there are yachts actually phasing out. The only question is, what did you do even in that frame of the time? If you planned everything well, you didn't lose any time. That's very important. So keep taking the yacht, taking the ownership, having some care and positioning on the market. That's probably the ultimate goal. Or if you still wish to keep it in charter management.
That's a good transition. So the next B will be the strategy B, and we would like to revoke this new way of thinking about this, because you're now probably in this program, which is standardized, this set amount of years and usage and so forth. When you get into the option of having charter management of your boat, and you're deciding which your vessel, which partner you should use, and there's 2,700 something operators around the world, very many different ways of doing it, good and bad. Our job is actually positioned as your advisor and your consultant to tailor this. So we work with roughly speaking about 40 operators around the world that we know very well from before, not just from my experience, but we have one of my colleagues who's not joining us here today, Daria, has been working over 20 years in the industry. We do have a due diligence on which partners we work with and what they're good at and which boats they should be representing. Finally, it's also up to you to decide, of course, where you want to be with your boat. But if you're looking at extending your life with your boat into charter, we do have a lot of really good partners who can handle your older boats. We can look at refinancing your boat. We can look at how we do with smaller measures of refitting on your boat to extend that life. And you can look at another 5 to 6 years at least with your boat in charter management. And that's what we call the tailored charter ownership, and it's in the concept of boutique management of your boats. Would you like to talk about this, or we want to find out more information about this? You can see it on our website, but Angela and I would gladly share some more examples, case studies, and also some information, so you have the chance to speak directly with our colleague Daria about this. All right. We are now finally at the end of the webinar. I think another couple of slides. I think it's more prudent actually that you speak about this, knowing Angela, you've been representing the charter operator himself and talking to the owner also to handle this sort of stressful period of the preparation and planning for this, and controlling everyone who's involved in this, including your old colleagues at the base. But maybe you can take the lead on explaining this, because you are blueprint the 12 steps we've shown what we have done.
Yeah, that's right. I guess the main question is what I'm doing here, but there is a way to explain it, being like a spider of the net, and then still again having to know different processes, not only in Croatia where I live, but I was globally covering different destinations and providing support at that time. So it's, for me, it's very nice to be again in this assistance position, but then again have colleagues. They are in charge for their own parts, what we have all talked about. So it's very then easy to comprehend to the point to your questions, hear you out, take time, make those options for you. Maybe you don't think now about this option having charter management at all, but maybe something worthwhile to check, because there is a person that can provide you specific information and check for you how about maybe different destinations and so on, what are possibilities. And that's what is all about the timing and having a tailored service provided at your needs.
Yeah, I think timing is really everything, and timing in this sense can be your leverage. Um, I mean, if your phase out is within the next 8 months, your window to reclaim leverage is already narrowing right now. It's something that we thought that when we did it the first year, several years now ago, that we can start like, okay, around the summer we can start talking to the base and going down there and looking at the boat and maybe having a chance to be on the boat for an hour in between the charter weeks. But we want to do it now. So you really time is your leverage. And the notice period, the service scheduling, the documentation review, and everything has to happen way before these last 30 to 60 days, I would say. And we want that to be because we're handling it. We have the power of attorney for you. We would want you to sit back a little bit and just follow the process. And we have a checklist of, I think it's 77 points what we do. We want to provide you with the information so we can have your approval, that you don't have to question anything. Why it's nothing happening. You can really follow it. And we want you to have a sense of, okay, I know what to do at the end. I know what options I have. I'm now relying on Yacht-Match to handle this and to handle the hurdles, which is going to be plenty, with a lot of communication, no communication, and so forth. So it's really about giving you that added value of you having the leverage to choose. That's actually what it is here. So timing is really your leverage.
Yeah, and practically taking over that communication with this
Yeah.
power of attorney. Yeah.
Different scenarios, and I think that also goes into a little bit of Giuseppe's question. Giuseppe's question is mainly about the timeline of the ownership and ownership change, and what to think about when it comes to registration and VAT. That is very particular. It's hard to. I mean, in general, we can answer it by looking at some examples here, but we need to first understand where your boat is, because that's very important to understand where the boat is registered, because VAT practices are different in every country. Also, how it is owned by a financing company or by you itself or by the charter company itself. And then there's still ways of optimizing that. So even if you're in a particularly hard situation and you're not going to be able to get a very good favorable situation, or try to avoid VAT or having a VAT paid at as low as possible, we still need to know a little bit more about your situation. But what we know about that question, when the ownership should be transferred, is that the charter company itself would like to know that as soon as possible, because they have to prepare how to clear the boat from their books if they own the boat. If it's connected to a leasing, they need to go and lease back the boat. They need to create a bill of sale, and that all needs to be planned in advance. And then they need to take account all the costs involved. So when the base comes back with, this cost of this and that, and there's unresolved payments, or they owe you money or something like that, that all needs to go into their bookkeeping. So we need to really be clever about communicating, because we want to be always on the right side and more or less claiming your position towards a charter company, where you are not delayed with informing them or causing procrastination. So the general answer is to be as soon as possible out informing about what you want to do and who does what, and then giving us or yourself or any agent that you know in that country help with understanding the costs involved with ownership, deregistration, re-registration, and how to minimize VAT. And the minimum of the VAT is also very arbitrary, because it depends completely if it's a leasing company involved or if the boat is registered in the charter company or registered with you. There's ways of optimizing that. So the earlier we can get in, the better we can optimize any eventual payment of VAT, because different countries have different ways of calculating the VAT in the end. I know it's a very bit general speaking, but we need to know a little bit more about that, Giuseppe. But earlier the possible and communicating clearly with the charter company, that's the strategy we advise.
Yes, definitely. Maybe what we did not even mention somehow, that at the point when takeover protocol is signed, which we said is a technical part, the paper-wise, it has to follow the technical part. So it happens on that day where you take the ownership. In advance, you have to, like Victor mentioned, ensure that you have insurance ready, that you have checked all of VAT questions, that the flag is also there if it needs to be deleted. And generally, we cannot address one simple answer about VAT, depending where the yacht is based. It can be French flag, it can be Croatian flag. There can be all variety of those flags, especially if it's on leasing. Then it is something that you need to think in advance and prepare everything. This is very actually critical moment for the end of the contract this year, particularly if you wish to have some different options, you need to do it before the end of the contract. Although the end of the contract doesn't mean that on that date takeover has to be done. So this can go later, of course, but the important thing is that you have prepared everything on time and before. So that's the whole point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these case scenarios here are not theoretical questions. These are real scenarios owners face when they're deciding to start this process. But what is really important is how you communicate and how you document and how you assert yourself, knowing what you know. Of course, you can always revert back to a contract. You can revert back to what our lawyer says, or your lawyer says, or anyone who knows more about this. But it's really trying to find a way to work with this. But if you're really stressed, then everyone becomes stressed. So time is leverage again, and then you have options that you can choose from, and then we can look at best case scenarios always. So yeah, I think it's worth mentioning that we're not working ad hoc. We really have faced a lot of situations. I mean, the first boats that we helped were really also ex charter fleet with Hurricane Irma, who have traveled between the Atlantic and the European and had services in different places and different insurances in different places. So we really had to face a lot of complications, a lot of different. We have had clients with several boats and stuff like that. So we really face a lot of questionable situations which we have solved. So we're a team, we're structured, we're here to help you, and we hope that by this presentation we have invoked you an interest in you. Angela will, after this meeting, send the webinar 1 and 2 and our brochure and invite you in for a meeting where we can look a little bit more about your particular questions you have, get you to understand how we structure our assignment, why we're charging the project fee that we're charging, about what we're doing in the hours we spent. And the added value that we said here is really to release you from the stress and the burden, to really make it a proper coordinated handover, to give you the options in the end to sell your boat. How we will do that, we've already talked about. Happy to show you case studies. And if you want to continue in charter management, we do that by really comparing, analyzing, giving you options with one of our boutique operators, and then we manage your boat. And that is vastly different compared to having a boat with a big global charter company, because it's based on partnership, transparency, and a much more pleasurable journey, I would say. So thank you so much for listening. I would like to hand over to Angela as well to maybe say some final things.
It's cool. My mic that I cannot turn on every time on the second.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. I would be happy, of course, to receive the calls, arrange meeting, non-obligatory, of course, hear you out and see. And so we do. And then introduce also a colleague. And then we can see what's the status and of course provide more specific information and answer some questions to start with. I have shared some
case
materials.
studies and FAQs. That would be really good, I think, many to see how this actually has panned out.
Yeah, I have already shared some materials prior to today's webinar, but I will then see after this webinar that you receive also this record and some still updated information, of course.
Before we leave, Giuseppe, do you feel that you've had, does this give you somewhat of an answer to your question? Do you, and the rest of the attendees, do you have any questions that you would like to post here in the chat so we can, so everyone else can also, we can address that so everyone else can see what questions you have. And if you don't feel comfortable asking questions or you feel that you don't have anyone now, please, we will be happy to have individual meetings with you, Angela and I, to go through your specific situation, like we said before, and address, maybe talk about some case studies and give you some referrals. So yeah, Giuseppe, do you think that we have been able to answer you, or do you need to have a one-on-one meeting? Okay, if not, then I wish you a okay. So let's have an individual meeting. I think that's definitely worth it. And for the rest who has joined us today, thank you very much. We'll be recording this and sharing it with you. And we wish you a really lovely evening and hope to speak to you soon again and to be able to share, for you to be able to share some of your future plans with us. That'll be really exciting to see how we can help you. So thank you from me here in Sweden.
Thank you also from Croatia. Bye-bye.
Have a nice evening. Thank you, everyone.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.